thank you for doing this. I really appreciate it. I figured we start off, dude. Why don't you give a little rundown of like who you are and like your racing and your Palmares, like whatever you want to talk about.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm Brody Sanderson. I'm a anything with two wheels racer from Orillia, Ontario. I'm 22 years old, so I'm first year elite now in cyclocross, which is a bit weird feeling after not racing for a couple of years. Big jump from like a second year under 23, but oh well. And yeah, I've been a cross country mountain bike racer most of my life. I've dabbled in a little bit of enduro and a lot of cyclocross as well. And kind of transitioning from cross country into enduro and cross, just that's more enjoyable and kind of what I like. And then as far as Palmares go, I was the junior national champion of Canada as an under 19, and then came second at Canada Summer Games the same year. So that was pretty cool. Under 23 Canada Summer Games, sorry. So
That's
yeah,
awesome, dude.
kind
Yes.
my two biggest highlights of my so far short racing career.
That's amazing, man. And I saw also you have done some road racing. I mean, at least I was checking you out on like road results, which I'm sure with it being mostly a US site, it doesn't really have everything. But do you still do some road races here and there?
Um, Not as of late. I really want to get back into some crit racing. I always like
Okay.
the kind of like sketchiness vibe. Reminds me a lot of cross. But yeah, I did was that Speed Week in like in Carolina area?
Yeah, I saw something in like 2016, and I saw that you did like Green Mountain Stage, or was it maybe it wasn't 2016, but you did Green Mountain Stage race some year. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I've done Green Mountain Stage Race twice and a few other little like race series just with the Ontario cycling team. So
sweet
try and mix it up. Don't. It's nice to kind of take skills from other disciplines and mix it into what you like. Trying to be
for
more of a
sure.
well-rounded athlete's pretty cool.
Dude, what I wanted to say was when you're talking about like XC racing, I'm gonna link your Instagram for sure. Everyone should check you out. But dude, your videos you have on Instagram, like those when you have the camera on your chest, they're amazing. When you're ripping down the trails on your mountain bike,
Oh,
uh,
thank you.
yeah, those are awesome, and everyone should check those out. But so yeah, dude. So you and I met at Rochester earlier this year, a couple weeks ago, or I guess
Mhm.
it was like that's a month ago now. And like we're sitting in the corral for our call ups. And I think I don't know if you said hi to me first or if I said hi to you. I think you probably did because I was just like super, super nervous. And you were just like, going racing, man. Um, and then I think I told you this because we chatted after the race. So I think I had a better call up than you because it was random on day one.
Mhm.
And like I was like bleeding out of my eyes on that first lap. And I remember like we got to like going into double trouble, which anyone who doesn't know the Rochester course, it's like this weird like left hand turn, like right, like up with like a ledge. I don't even know how to explain it. And then like a drop on the other side. It's like a narrow section. And you were already in front of me and you were off your bike. I don't know what happened. I think you dropped your chain or something.
Yeah, I dropped my chain. I didn't set the bike. So I was borrowing a bike from a buddy, and my like main bike kind of like didn't work just due to negligence to my own repairs. Didn't have the B tension set up right. Dropped my chain on that like super fast straightaway. I was like,
Yep.
this is not the time.
And dude, and obviously you had an amazing start. Like ultimately what I'm getting at is like you had an amazing start, and then like I'm like, oh my god, how did this guy get in front of me already? And then you finished like whatever 25 spots in front of me or something. And I was like, oh dude, this dude like he's a super nice guy and he's like super good at racing. So then we chatted a little bit afterwards, and I was like, dude, and then I know you're doing the World Cups, which I want to talk about, and I was like, this guy would be great. He knows what he's doing, and yeah, I just kind of wanted to pick your brain about just kind of cross racing and your training and all that stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm like the most knowledgeable. I just kind of go with the flow and see what happens. But sometimes it's the easiest and best way, in my opinion.
Well, dude, what you're doing is working, man.
Yeah, so far at
Um,
least.
so dude, you're 22 years old. You're a young guy. My first question is, so what are your goals, man? And are they in cycling?
Yeah. Actually, I had a good chat with my coach about this a few days ago. In a perfect world, I'd love to be paid to do this. Not saying I want to be like a Matthew Van Der Poel or a Nino Schurter or SAG and any of those guys who are making some mega bucks. But realistically, I just want to make enough to ride my bike and see how well I can do. And no like real performance goals. I always feel pigeonholed with those. So
For sure, man. I feel you there. But like, you have the ultimate goal, and like you have your trajectory, and you're on it, man. And I mean, I think I did like a bunch of research. I was checking you out on like Cyclocross 24, all your past seasons and stuff. And dude, you just got like better and better. And like this is your first season racing the full elite. So like, what's that been like, man? And especially you jumped right into the 3 World Cups here. Like, what's the season so far been like for you? And would you consider it a success or so far?
Yeah, so far I'd consider it a success. In Canada, at least, racing's been pretty minimal. There's been a lot of like time trial starts and stuff like that, at least this year. But beyond that, there's been no real racing. I think there was like 3 mountain bike Canada Cups, but again, nothing serious. So jumping just kind of straight into the fire in Rochester just to kind of see how things went, get my toes wet again, make sure this is actually what I still love doing after a few years off. But yeah, it's been a huge success. Bit of inconsistency, I'd say, jumping around a lot in terms of placing and performance results, but really, really happy overall with how the season's gone so far.
That's awesome, dude. I did some math. I averaged out your results for the 3 World Cups. 30.66 repeating, dude. That's like your average result. Dude, that's amazing, man. That's like so impressive, man.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I honestly wasn't really expecting that. I kind of like Rochester just kind of like started and was like, let's see how it goes. I'm here. I think of myself as like a part-time bike racer. So just like enjoy it for what it is and see what happens. So yeah, I was super happy with that.
That's awesome, man. So let me ask you this in regards to racing the World Cups. Like I know for like USA Cycling, the qualifications is like UCI points, and there's some other stuff, and it goes into like discretionary choices and stuff. What's it like in like what did you have? Were there qualifications to get on and race the World Cups for Canada?
So Canada, at least at this point, is a little bit interesting. There's not a huge cyclocross scene just because it's not an Olympic sport, so there's really minimal funding. So most people just stick to cross country just because there's more funding from Cycling Canada. So that kind of led into the qualifications too, since there's not many racers. Was mostly just kind of coach's discretion based on whether you were a development athlete in previous years or the coach just liked you, or if you actually wanted to race as an elite man. I know the women's field was a little bit different just because there were, a ton of people who wanted to go. But men's was just kind of like, I want to race. Let's see how this goes.
That's awesome though, dude. And then, but you're there getting top 30, averaging 30th, and dude, you're ahead of a bunch of US guys who awesome racers. I'm saying who went through the whole qualification. So I think that kind of solidifies and verifies that like you are qualified to be there, like without a doubt.
Yeah, which is always nice.
That's awesome, man. Yeah.
So
what about the UCI point shakeup? I don't think, because you were going up to elite. So if they hadn't erased the point thing was, and I know you know this, but like they erased all the points going into the season, right?
Yeah.
But so did you? I think you had points before, but would they have carried over from U19 or U23 rather into elite?
So I honestly don't think I had any points just because my last race was well outside of that 12-month period. Okay. I think the Zolder World Cup in 2019 would have been my last UCI race that I got points at. So I was starting at 0 regardless of that shakeup.
Gotcha. So then I know at Rochester you had there's the random drawings. Same with Charm City. Mm-hmm. How does the staging work? Because like I did a podcast breaking down like it's just super confusing, and I don't know if like you have wrapped your head around all this. How did the staging work when you went to the World Cups?
So I was just last row basically.
Okay.
But there was like just shy of 50 starters, so you're like 5th, maybe 6th row. It's not like Rochester's like 12 rows or something.
Yeah,
like that. So you're not that far back at the end of the day. And even with the points, like since everyone in the race had points and was getting points from those races, it didn't really change any of the standings moving forward, unless you were like a Gage Hecht who went from like 15 points to coming 13th in Waterloo or wherever he finished. So
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And you just for doing the race, you get UCI points, right? Isn't that how that works for the World Cups?
Yeah, I can't remember exactly how it works at least this year, but in previous years, I know if you finished as in didn't DNF, you got 5 points. Top 50 was 10, and then you got an extra point for each position you were ahead of 50.
Up from there.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. So that's great news for the rest of your season. Do you have the rest of your season kind of outlined? Do you know like where you're going? I know you had said you're going to do some European races, which you've done in the past.
Yeah.
But do you have your calendar kind of like spread out or detailed?
Yeah, I've got like a vague idea of what I want to do. I think I'm going to go to Falmouth. That's really rad, I think is what it's called. So
For sure.
the couple of C2s there, and then head over to Canadian Nationals in Langford, BC, Pan Am's, a couple of weeks off, and then hopefully head over for like the Namur World Cup and that kind of curse period.
Awesome, man.
And then World Championships, hopefully after that as well.
Awesome. Yeah, I wanted to ask you about World Champs. I guess we'll get there because I want to know what your feelings on the course when you were at Fayetteville.
Yeah.
But I'll see you at Really Rad, man. I'll be there.
Sick.
I'm looking forward to that. Will you do some like local races too? Like, but you had said maybe there isn't really much going on.
Yeah, so this year for cross, they're doing more and more. It was just like basically the 4 weekends in October were the only weekly or local cross racing. So with the other big races happening in the States, I wasn't able to do any of them, or up to this point at least. I believe in not this upcoming weekend, but the weekend after is provincials. So I'll probably do that and just catch up with people who I haven't seen in a while at the race and have a good time and
awesome, man.
Kind of support like the local cycling community. I think that's really important, especially with developing athletes. I know when I was younger, it was always cool seeing all the fast guys racing World Cups at provincial level races and made me want to do more. So nice to kind of be in that position now that I'm a little older.
That's great, dude. Yeah, I'm sure people are stoked. I'm sure they're asking you the same questions that I'm going to ask you, like all this stuff. What was it like? All this. That's really cool, man.
Yeah.
So let's jump into the World Cups, man. I got a bunch of stuff to talk to you about, but okay. So for people who are unaware, there was a World Cup race in Wisconsin, Waterloo, Wisconsin on October 10th, which is a Sunday. Then there was a World Cup 3 days later in Fayetteville, on Wednesday. And then 4 days later on that Sunday in Iowa City, which was Jingle Cross. So dude, that's just like so much traveling and like so much logistics. And then the racing on top of that, which you're going against the best guys in the world. I don't know. Open-ended question, dude. How did you like go about like tackling that?
So I'm not always the most organized. Before I say anything, I'm not the most organized human being most of the time. And as this year, I've been working way too much and I haven't given myself enough time to plan anything in my life. Anyways, with that being said, I was planning on doing the races with a good friend, Jen Jackson. So we're going to split travel, accommodation, stuff like that. And she kind of had a good idea of what we were going to do. I didn't have to touch anything. I was like, this is awesome. This is going to be a super easy trip. Life's good. And then she needed to take a bit of a break from racing after a long cross-country World Cup calendar, which is fine. I was like, I got lots of time. It's like September 10th, I'll book it. And I got an email from the UCI at like 7 o'clock in the morning saying, oh, we need all of your hotels or wherever you're going to stay at for the races so we can do like anti-doping and stuff like that. And it's due tonight at midnight. It's like, oh no. I had to leave for work at like 8:40 in the morning. I just gotten back from a training ride at 8 o'clock. So I just panic booked a whole bunch of hotels and was like, I'll figure it out later. Doesn't matter. So just absolute cluster of booking hotels like 10 minutes before work. And so that's kind of how the trip started.
So did you end up staying in all those hotels that you booked in that window?
Yeah, so I have a really bad memory too. So all I could remember is that I booked somewhere, but I didn't actually remember what I booked. So they were
Dude.
all just like these super like cheap and dirty motels, like in these semi-sketchy parts of town. I was like, I got to almost every single one of them, and it's like, what am I doing here? Like, I don't want to leave anything anywhere. It was just these super cheap, janky places. But oh well, makes for
Well,
a good
now
adventure.
but you know what, dude? It's a learning experience, right? Now you know going into next year, you know.
Yeah, exactly. I know that I can save money and survive in all these hotels.
There you go. Okay. That's an even better way of looking at it. Yeah.
Exactly.
But yeah, dude, like with the anti-doping and stuff, like that's something like all those logistics, like letting the UCI know, those are all the things that like people don't think about, you know? Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
It-
And what
it-
about like nutrition and stuff too? Are you like pretty specific on that? Like do you pack your own stuff, like grocery shop, or are you kind of like an eat out person? How did you balance that?
Um, so I tried to do a lot of like cooking and stuff in the hotel, just like a little cooktop I got when I was in school, which makes it super easy and fairly cheap. Just do like one pan meals. So I was loving quesadillas on this trip. So
Nice.
almost every meal is just a simple little quesadilla. And then after races, this don't listen to this. This is really bad advice, but I love like just some super cheap fast food. It's like a Big Mac meal or like something like that. Just
Dude, you're gonna get some comments on this for sure.
my excuse. I've a couple of my quote unquote teammates are doctors. Like, yeah, it's the easiest, fastest way to get like all your sugars, your fats, and your sodium back in you. I'm just gonna agree with that. I'm not gonna question it.
But also, dude, I think the excuse is everyone's gonna be like, ah, he's 22, man, and he's getting 30th place. Like, whatever he's doing, it's all right.
No, this guy is like an he used to be an ultra marathon runner, like 24
Okay,
hour racer. He's like in his mid 40s, and this is his advice. So
nice.
just gonna, yeah. Anyways,
There you go, dude. All right, cool, nice, dude. Who knows? Maybe in the next time we talk, we'll be like, dude, the nutrition advice has changed. Everyone's hitting on McDonald's after all their races now.
that Big Mac sauce is just making him fast.
Yep, exactly. All right, dude, that's interesting, man. I feel like I asked that question to a lot of people, and like it's always like various answers, you know. I think, but more often than not, I get like the cooktop in the hotel room is usually stationary, or usually like what people go with. Um, all right, yeah, man. So let's stick on travel for a little bit. What do you
Yeah.
do? I mean, training for this specific block. I'm sure it was all just recovery. I mean, were you riding at all on those days, or maybe just like spinning the legs out? But it's not like you were doing intervals, I would imagine.
No, like I was mostly just between races. I was just doing like a 30-minute spin on travel days, and then like an hour of course recon otherwise. Or like I think in Iowa, I did like a just 2 hour super easy spin just to kind of keep some volume in my legs and some training stress that isn't just pure intensity.
Yeah.
But beyond that was just recovering between the World Cups. I didn't do any of the C1s or C2s. It was just strictly I'm there for these 3 races, and that's all I'm focusing on.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you about that too. If that was a calculated decision to not do Friday and Saturday. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Like when I was looking at it initially, I was like, it'd be super cool to do these races with all the Euros. And the more I thought about it, I was like, well, in reality, I want to get some points. I hate starting like random call up, and having 5 points is cool, but if I could have 20 points, that'd be awesome and would be really beneficial later on.
Yep.
So I could work as hard as I could in a C1 or C2 and get like 3 points and lose 10 points the next day. It's like, well, that doesn't really make sense. So that was
And
kind of
also,
my. Oh, go ahead.
go
Sorry.
ahead. I was going to say, dude, also you're saving it because there's the GCN coverage, which is awesome, the USCX, which has been awesome. But the better TV coverage is for the World Cup. So you got to bring your A game, right?
Yeah, and like if I was on a team like a Michael Vandenham or Goss, what's his name?
Vandermeer.
Yeah, that.
Yep.
I think that would make more sense in terms of like pleasing sponsors and stuff, because you're going to be on TV in those races. But I realistically have no sponsors to please. I'm just here doing it for myself. So there's that kind of fine balancing act too that, again, like most people probably don't think about.
I wanted to ask you that, dude. I meant to ask you that before. Your team, your program now. I think I looked it up on Cross Results, and it was like AWI. I know what your kit looks like. Is that the team kit?
Yeah, that's the team kit.
Okay, nice.
So without like going too deep, the backstory is there's a really fast cross country racer named Andrew Watson. So actually, my boss and one of our buddies made this joke team, which stood for Andrew Watson Incorporated, and it was these like nasty '90s like ski suits essentially, which has progressed into the plaid over the years. But it's just a bunch of people who like riding, and there's nothing really there. A little bit of coaching with athletes and stuff, but beyond that, it's just you're gonna wear plaid, you're gonna get nothing, and you're gonna like it. That's kind of the motto of the team.
Hey man,
Yeah.
awesome. We got to post for the photo. We should do one of you in your kit, man, because I think the kit's awesome, and it's also great for on TV. You stand out, man. I'm like, oh, dude, there's Brody.
Yeah, man, I've never heard or seen so many people so stoked on a single kit. Got to the point where like after some of the races, like I just need to change out of this so I can walk around, like go to like prize money or get like some food or something after the race, and no one talking. Like I'm done. Just I appreciate it, but just space, please.
It's a double-edged sword there, man. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So yeah, dude, we talked travel. And you're also for this. So since Jen unfortunately couldn't tag along, you're rolling completely solo, right? Like you're doing the drive-in, you're booking, you're getting in, you're checking into the hotel, you're working on the bikes.
Yeah. So I'm not sure what it is in miles, but it was 49,040 or 4,940 kilometers and 51 hours of driving in 10 days. That was all solo.
Oh my gosh, dude. I would have loved to know, did you calculate how much sleep you got on this trip?
So I'm usually actually really good with sleep. I'm like a 9:30 bedtime kind of person, and then up at 6. I was like, well, it doesn't really interfere anything other than like the last travel day. I was driving throughout the day, so sleep wasn't interrupted too much. But
yeah,
that's
crazy, man. Did you feel? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh no, I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, do you feel like you did like doing this experience again? Would you, if you had to, like, would you think you'd do it the same way, or like do you think going with someone would be a huge benefit to like share the driving and that kind of stuff? Or do you think that you functioned fine? Like it was like, it was a hassle, but like I still felt okay come race day.
I think in a perfect world, I'd like to do it with someone, more just from the boredom's sake. It's a lot of time on your own. Like that more eats into me than necessarily the driving. I don't mind driving. I don't really find it tires me out. But having someone to talk to, or like even in the hotel, you're like, oh, it's like 7 o'clock. I don't really want to go out. Don't really have anyone to talk to. I'll just like pull up Netflix and chill. First few days, that's fine. But come like day 7 or 8, you're like, okay, it'd be nice to do something, talk to someone, social interaction. But yeah.
Well, you had said in the future, because I think one of the first things I asked you was like, oh, you must be traveling with like Vandenham. And I think you might do some traveling. You said like for when you go to Europe, you guys might all go together.
Yeah. So Cycling Canada usually runs like a project in Belgium. They have a house that they've rented out for a number of years. So usually it's like somewhere between 8 and 14 athletes that do the trip, and a number of mechanics and a coach. So it makes it super easy. All the travel and logistics are figured out. You just kind of show up as an athlete. It's a paid pro experience in a sense. So that it makes it a lot easier.
That's nice, man, for sure. Yeah, that sounds just all you got to do is just show up and then you're good to go.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Actually, backing up to in the future, what I'd like to do, I learned the hard way that doing everything out of like a small hatchback, especially at muddy cross races, is not the correct way to do things.
Okay. What do you recommend? What's a better vehicle for this?
So I've spent way too much, probably around 51 hours thinking about this. But like a small little van, not like a full-size Sprinter, but that like Ford Transit Connect kind of size.
Okay.
Big enough where it's like good fuel economy, so it's not super expensive, but you can still stretch out and get your feet up without being like super cramped. Have like an awning or something you can chill under. I think that's like the best privateer way to go. But
awesome.
That's my unexperienced semi-professional opinion.
Well, this sounds like, dude, are you thinking about doing that? Like, would that like kind of be in a future investment?
I think so. Yeah. Like I think that might be the way to go in the future, but it all, there's 1,000 different things that
For sure.
can change. So
I know, and I'm sure you've seen this, but Caleb Schwartz has his van, which that thing looks dope. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'd say like I'm buddies with Caleb, and I always like ride by when I'm saying hi or like going for a bit of a like pre-ride with him. And I'm like looking at like, what the hell? Like, this is so cool. You just get to drive around and live out of this thing. It looks so dialed and looks so good with his like sponsorship logos everywhere too.
Dude, he's put together very well. That's super impressive. And dude, and he backs it up like he does. He's a super solid racer.
Yeah, he was like mid-30s like every single day.
Yep.
Like, he's got some skills to go with it too. Like, it's not like he's just a dirt roadie in a sense. Like, he has the skills to back up that too. So it'll be interesting in a few years when he can actually focus on this and not have other things going on in the background that occupies training time or recovery time.
Is he still in school? Not to focus too much on him, but
I'm honestly not too sure.
Okay, no worries, man. I was just curious.
Yeah.
So dude, so in regards to training, man, I still want to talk about the World Cup week, but what do you do? This is the question. Like, I put this poll out. We have an Evoke Discord. I don't know if you're familiar with Discord. It's like a messaging channel, or maybe you are.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, I'll send you the link. You should get on there, man. And it's just like a bunch of people, all the athletes, and it's like, and not in everybody else too. You don't even have to be an Evoke athlete. But some of the questions in regards to cyclocross are always like, what is the best like lead up into cyclocross, right? Like, it's like, should you do a road season? Should you do a mountain bike season? Should it be gravel races? When should you start running? What intervals do you do? When do you start doing cross intervals? Like, the list goes on and on. And I'm curious like, dude, you've been racing at a super high level for years now. And I'm sure you've maybe experimented. Like I said, you did some more road races previously. Do you have a preferred run-in, or do you kind of have like or just we'll leave it at that. Do you have a preferred run-in, and kind of what does it look like?
Again, leading off my like kind of semi-unpreparedness approach to life, I just kind of go at it as I go at it. I trust my coach, Andrew Watson. So whatever he kind of puts up is what I go for. But I'm a big believer of doing what makes you happy. At the end of the day, like, how many of us are actually being paid to do this? So if you love cross-country mountain biking, do cross-country mountain biking. If you love road racing, do road racing. I don't think there's a wrong answer to anything. Just kind of comes into what you enjoy most and is going to keep you motivated leading into the cross season, which motivation I think is more important than like actual fitness. It's more about where your head's at versus where your leg's at.
Dude, so I talked with Cody Kaiser last night, and I asked him that same question, and he almost gave the exact same answer as you, man. He was just like, he's like, he does some work on the scooter, but he was like, really, if I feel like riding the mountain bike, I'll ride the mountain bike. If I feel like riding my track bike, I'll ride my track bike. He's like, I really don't have like a calculated, like answer to this. And like, I know there really isn't, there isn't a one size fits all. But it's just interesting that it's like, kind of just like, cross season comes, you ride. But yeah, I think a lot of people, myself included, overanalyze, like, I got to be doing my over-unders, and then I get into my FTP work, and then I'm doing this, and it's like 2 months out and 1 month out. It doesn't really necessarily have to be like that.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Like, I think I had 6 rides on a cross bike before I went to Rochester.
Oh man.
I've just been like, I have an enduro bike, and I've just been riding that all summer. I'm like, I love this. Like, it's building skill and like thinking on my feet and quickly, just because you're moving so much faster, just like cross. Like, you're averaging like 25K an hour at some of these cross races. So I think like using different discipline skills too, like I said earlier, that transfer over is really important.
So definitely, dude. So doubling down on that, do you feel that like you've been like racing and riding mountain bikes and cross for like whatever, a long time now? Do you feel that gives you, because you're a super skilled dude, like you have a lot of bike handling and tactics or what's the word I'm looking for here? I can't find my note here. Skill on the bike, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Do you think that you got all that like from like just that carryover, or do you work on specific things like going out and doing cross specific practices, or it just kind of is there and just all this repetition?
I think it's kind of a mix of everything. When I was a younger developing athlete, or more developing athlete, I should say, I did do a lot of skills work with a bunch of friends. We had a really good crew kind of when I was a cadet and junior called Next Wave Cycling, and all of us kind of pushed each other, whether that be mountain biking or road racing, cyclocross, and forcing each other to learn skills in different ways. I think that was really beneficial. But again, I think like it's a mix of everything. I think cyclocross makes me a better mountain biker because you have to be extremely precise and extremely focused and delicate, almost like you're dancing through the course. Where I think mountain biking helps me in cyclocross because I can have the confidence to approach these more technical features and carry more speed through corners and having overall better technique through corners and stuff like that. So I think there's no like which came first, the chicken or the egg. It's just each help build the level of each.
For sure, man. And are you balancing that then? Are you doing like some endurance rides on the road bike? Or are you doing long days on the mountain bike?
Yeah, I kind of mix it up between the two. Most of my training, at least this year, because there wasn't a ton of racing, was just like, hey, you have either these intervals or this long on the bike. Go out and do it however you want. You want to go for a big mountain bike day? Awesome, send it. You want to do a big group ride on the road? Go for it. You want some time alone just to like zone out and listen to some music or put podcasts on the road? By all means, just like enjoy the bike, stay motivated, don't burn yourself out. And I think that's
Nice,
a good
man.
way to kind of approach things.
For sure. What about, so getting specifics? I know people are going to want to know this. Do you
Yeah.
have any specific intervals that you feel that like get you prepped for cross season, or like maybe you're crushing this interval and you're like, yeah, dude, I'm ready to go. Let's get to racing.
Yeah. Earlier this summer, I forget what the exact name of it was, but it was like a 6-minute effort that was just below my like 5-minute power. And my brain is not fully functioning, so I can't remember exactly what my coach called it. But I do 3 or 4 of those, and that made me feel like really, really good. Especially just because I was progressing in terms of how much power I was pushing kind of day in, day out. So that was super motivating. But honestly, like, going for segments on my mountain bike makes me feel super stoked. Like,
Yeah.
I love going downhills as fast as I can. So I'm like, yeah, I was like 1 second off my PR on this or something like that. Just it makes me super stoked. And it's that kind of short, explosive power, really similar to cross.
Yep.
So I think that's a good translation. Kind of going all over the place in that explanation, but
No, dude, that's great, man. Yeah. What about a lot of other cross guys I talk to, they're like they'll take their cross bike out on trails. And I don't know what the trails are like specifically by you. I know like by me, I'm in Connecticut. It's just too rocky here. Like I could travel, and I do. I'll bring the cross bike there. Do you sometimes bring the cross bike out on some trails?
I haven't as of the last few years, but that is something that I do really enjoy doing. Bit of a tangent. A number of years ago now, I was super fortunate to do the they only did this 1 year, but the UCI held like a cross development course in wherever they're based out of in Switzerland. And it was run by Sven Nys and Sven Venturnout.
Oh, nice.
And they kind of like broke down a bunch of skills and stuff like that. And the one piece of advice that they kind of forced upon everyone was ride your cross bike like a mountain bike. Find like a 1-minute course in the woods, whether you rake it out, whether it's something that's already made, and just like cycle it on your cross bike. Like just go for it as much as you can. That's where they learned the most, the vast majority of their skills. And said that's super critical for gaining confidence and going fast. So yeah.
That's awesome, dude. Dude, that's a excellent piece of advice, man. That's something else, dude. That's what I was talking to Cody. He was like, a lot of underbiking. He's like, bring your road bike out on gravel, bring your cross bike out on the trails, you know? He said that was a big thing that helped him. So that's awesome, man. And what about this? Just picking your brain on a topic. Was there anything else? Because I know everyone's going to be like, what else was said at that? What else did Sven say? I'm putting you on the spot here.
No, it's all good. The other thing was starts. At least me personally, I was really bad for like standing up and just praying that I could get my opposite foot in on the first pedal stroke. But he really kind of forced into all of us to start seating, because you can produce 90% of your power even if you can't clip in. So you can still have a pretty decent start even if you don't clip in for 5, 6, 7 pedal strokes.
Gotcha.
And not fall out the back, which really improved my starts, which is kind of what you had said earlier about Rochester. So that was the other really big takeaway that I had.
That's awesome, man. Dude, I feel like I've dissected and talked to so many people and I never correlated that to. So that's amazing, man. Um, Go ahead.
Oh, one other thing. Neither of them could hop barriers unless they practiced 6 weeks in advance to
Okay.
the cross season.
Interesting, man. Do
Mhm.
you were so far ahead of me, I don't know this, man, but were you hopping the barriers?
So I can hop barriers. Um, it more comes down to like mental fatigue. I
For
think
sure.
for the half second that you might lose running the barriers, especially if you're on your own and you're not attacking, there's not a huge amount of point of doing it, at least at some of these courses. But then there's other courses where it's like, yeah, you can attack out of that one section, like go for it, do it, it's worth it.
For sure.
But I think it's really course dependent, and more than that, it's what your comfort level is too. Like if you're super confident hopping barriers, even if it's slower, but you're more confident hopping than running, hop. If it's you're more confident running than hopping, even if it's slower, run.
For sure, dude.
Like
And I
it,
think like it you have to get like I'm thinking I was Curtis White did the interview where he was chatting with I think it was Charm Day 2, where it was him and Vinny. I think Blevins had like missed a pedal or something or went down or and so it was him and Vinny going into the barriers, which were pretty close on day 2 to the finish. And he was like, I had to get to the barriers first because I was running them. This is Curtis. And I wanted to, be able to go through them at my own speed. But Vinny came around him and jumped him. And like, yeah, that was like a tactical thing in that situation. But those guys are also at the top of their game, like going for the
yeah,
win. So it's like, put that into context.
yeah, exactly. Like they're not going out for like a cat 3-4, like top 10. They're going out like this is their livelihood. Like
Exactly.
that
Yeah,
like $100 difference in payout could mean the difference between like them being able to afford a trip with like their federation or not. So
for sure, man. And then also,
yeah,
dude, I wanted to touch on when you said like mental fatigue. I think that's a big thing I always push to my athletes is like if you're hopping barriers or even running barriers, it's different. You should do some things at race pace, or I say sometimes do them after your intervals, like getting used to like some guys are new on like remounts and dismounts. Doing them like when you got whatever resting heart rate or 80 BPM is way different than when you're at 180 and you're on the first lap, right?
yeah,
So yeah,
yeah, and like I think a big thing too is it's not necessarily like the mental fatigue, it's like the stress we put on ourselves to do it too. Especially like you said, first lap, like we're all in panic state. I don't care if you're like you or I were like kind of mid pack to some extent, or if you're like a Sven Nys who's at the front of the race, like that first lap is so critical that if you miss a pedal, that could be the end of your race, whether you're consciously thinking it or not. Like, balancing that stress and pressure, I think, is almost more important than the mental fatigue aspect too.
what about, man, in regards to first laps? Do you go into races with like a specific strategy of like this is what I want to do, or is it like just go get as far up as you can?
It's kind of a mix. I learned the hard way, or learned again for the umpteenth time in Baltimore, that you can go out too hot and burn too many matches. So I think it's really about kind of being aggressive while still conserving energy. Like as short as an hour is in racing, an hour is a long time, man. Like so much can happen in an
It
hour.
is a long time. I don't know about you, but I'll get in and I'll be you're at a completely different level than me, but I'll look up and it'll be like 20 minutes, 9 laps left. And I'm like, what? I'm like, dude, I'm dead.
So actually, I've got a semi funny story on that. It was kind of the same idea. First ever Elite World Cup I did in Waterloo a number of years ago. And I remember coming through like 2 laps in. I'm like, oh, like it's gonna say like 8 laps to go. It's gonna be awesome. 10 lap race. I saw 11 laps to go, and I have never hated my life more.
Oh my gosh.
Like, oh no, no. But anyways, just backing up like to that first lap, I've found both in cross country and cyclocross, so many people kind of like time their starts for 1 lap, and then it's like a switch. They go from being like 5% off the leader to being 15% off the leader, like in a matter of seconds. So I've learned, at least for my personal how I work in racing, that if I can time it so that flip happens a lap and a half in, those positions I make up in half a lap are more than I'm ever going to make up by going into the red on that first lap. And that kind of conserves energy and forces energy management too.
So we elaborate on that a bit more, man. So you're saying people are planning to just go as hard as they can from the gun, and you're saying that you're reversing that.
Yeah, like especially like I've had a significant amount of experience with last lap or last row starts, whether that be cross country World Cups or whether that be cyclocross World Cups. And I didn't notice this. Admittedly, someone else pointed this out to me. But once they said that, it was so evident how many people blow up in a sense after that first lap. They're like, let's go. I got to get it. I got to get it. I got to get it. And then after that, like 10-minute or that 13-minute first lap, they suddenly realize, oh man, I went way too deep. I can't keep this up. And then their second lap is significantly slower than their first lap. And then they speed up again on that third lap to kind of their average race speed or lap time, whatever you want to call it. So being able to make up ground on that second lap, I found is super, super important. Especially if you have an issue on the first lap, like when I dropped the chain in Rochester. On the rest of that first lap, I made up 0 positions. Like I went from 70th to like 60th. It was that second lap where I passed like 20 people because everyone was doing that.
For sure, dude. Dude, that's a really, really good piece of advice, man. Because I was gonna say, man, at Fayetteville, I saw you on the coverage, and I was like, "Oh, dude, like he probably got a bad start. Like you were, I think you were dead last going.
Oh yeah, dead last by like 10 meters going up the start. That first.
And then like they didn't show too much coverage. They had a few shots here and there, because they're always focused on the leaders. And but I would see him like, oh, dude, he's moving up. He's moving up. And yeah, this is just you doing that strategy, man, of like just playing the long game, because it's like just like you said, it doesn't seem like an hour. Like you want to ride your bike for an hour of endurance. It's like whatever. But it is when you're going hard and like you're not calculated, like it can be very, very hard.
Yeah. And especially at races like Fayetteville, like when it becomes that tractor pull, if you're able to find that like fastest line through the mud and use that to your advantage, people might be able to do those like slower lines the same speed as you for 3/4 of the race. But because they burnt so many matches on that first lap trying to keep that same pace as the leader, that none of us are going to, in reality, going to be as fast as those leaders. They're dead like 3/4 of the way through too. So it's that like second wave of being tired and being able to kind of come back. Like my on the second last lap or the last lap, I was like 30 seconds faster than anyone in like a 5-spot position around me for that same reason. They're all like, oh, I'm tired, I'm dead, I can't do this anymore. Whether that be because of mistakes or just being tired, forcing themselves through the mud. So anyways, just kind of the...
What about you? So elaborating on that a bit more, playing that out for the race, do you have a plan? Are you like picking spots on the race where like, okay, I want to like put down some watts here? Of course, like the climbs and stuff, like you have to. But do you have other spots? Like I've heard an interview before of Jeremy Powers talking about how he would always like chunk up the lap and then he would chunk up the race of like, okay, I want to go hot for a couple laps, like recover, quote unquote, like he's not recovering, but maybe just go a little bit less and then hit it hard again. Do you kind of have a strategy like that?
Yeah, I don't necessarily have it before the race per se. Just I have a really hard time imagining how courses are going to play out until I'm at race pace. So I kind of use that first lap when I'm in the red for sure, but not like totally blown, to kind of pick out where people are slower, where my advantages are on the field, where I'm making up time, where I'm losing time, just little things like that, and then kind of develop a strategy as I go. So if we use, we'll use Water or Fayetteville for an example, just because it's super easy. There's really only like 2 or 3 things. So starting from the start, I'd use that whole kind of downhills recovery. I'd sit at like tempo, maybe a touch over tempo on those kind of like little intermediate climbs before the big or within that descent. And then I'd sit at like...
Let me jump in real quick. Are you like by tempo, are you like actively tracking like power or heart rate? Or you just kind of know? Yeah.
Yeah, just like kind of a rough idea. Like it could be above, it could be below, but just perceived effort was roughly tempo.
100%.
So using that as just recovery and trying to flush lactic acid out of my legs and not burn too much energy, because you're not really making up any more time on your competitors at that point. Everyone's kind of doing the same speed. And then that big climb, I would hit it, that whole big climb, and that would be like one big solid effort. I'd get over those little flats, I'd get into the pit. I'd found a faster lane through the pit that no one was using. So I'd use that as recovery because I know I was going the same speed as the rest of my competitors at less effort. And I'd use that as like a bit of a mental reset before those like awkward off camber things.
Yep.
And then again,
were you riding those? Sorry, or were you running those? I saw some guys running, some guys riding.
I was riding, but just because in my poor preparation, I forgot toe spikes. So I didn't really want to get off my bike.
Dude, Brody, there's a pattern here, man.
Oh yeah, I'm terrible. I'm the last minute packer and I always forget something.
You gotta, when we get off this call, I need you to make a list of all the things for your other races. You gotta get the toe spikes in the race day bag.
So I usually do make a list, and then I look at the list and I think, I don't need this. I got it. I don't need this. And then evidently every time I get to the race, I'm like, I forgot this one little thing.
Oh man. I'm sorry, dude. I'm keeping.
No, it's all good.
I apologize.
But yeah, I'd use that kind of like off camera section as a bit of a recovery, and then use those straights to try and gain some more time. Just because again, I knew where the faster line was, and I thought I can make up a few seconds here. Recover across the little like zigzaggy bit over the flagstones.
Yep.
And then naturally I'm just good at running. So I'm like, okay, I can hit the stairs every single lap as hot as I can.
Yep.
Do that, recover down the little knoll, and then sprint basically all the way through the straight into the pit, recover a bit on the little chicane, hard across the flats to the finish. And that was kind of how I broke up the race based on my skills and how I kind of saw my competitors using those areas.
Awesome, man. That makes total sense, dude. In regards to running, do you have a running background? Were you doing some stuff, or are you just like naturally good at it? Do you still do running now in the season or prior to the season?
So I've just naturally always been fairly good at running. And I actually love running, but I have really bad knees. So if I don't kind of ease into it, my knees hurt for like the whole season, which I did this year. So I can't run as much as I'd like to, but yeah, just naturally good at running and works out.
What about if you are doing a run, are you going out for, usually you see guys doing like 15, 20 minutes, maybe 30 minutes. Are you doing anything longer than that?
Not typically, just like a 30-minute run. And I don't really focus on, I probably should. My coach thinks I probably should without telling me, but I just kind of run at whatever pace feels natural. I don't stress too much.
Yep.
I know across the board, for the most part, heart rates are elevated more when you're running, even if you're in the same actual zone.
Yep.
So if you're sitting at like a tempo heart rate or threshold heart rate, you're not really at that pace. But if that's where your body wants to run there. Like, yeah. I don't think you're going to kill yourself for 30 minutes. Again, not a coach. This is just personal opinion. And
no, man. Yeah, this is awesome, though, man. This is great. I always tell my athletes, like, so there are some guys who are just naturally good runners or come from running backgrounds, but I'm like, running doesn't have to be, you don't have to go out and like do these blistering 5Ks, 10Ks. No. It doesn't have to be a strength of you. You just should make sure strength of yours, rather. It should just not be a weakness. So your heart rate doesn't spike, every single time. Like if you can monitor that a little bit, that's nice, to give you longevity through whatever your race is, 30, 45 an hour for us.
Yeah.
All right, dude. Yeah. So let's jump into, well, I guess we talked about running. The other thing I wanted to talk about was, do you do any strength training, any stuff like lifting or anything like that, free weights?
So again, like it's something I have done in the past with previous coaches, and there is admittedly a huge benefit to doing that. I'm not a super like mentally strong person. So I've never loved being in the gym, and I have a hard time kind of pushing through. So at that point, I think it comes down to balance between what's the actual physical adaptations you can make and what are the benefits of those versus the like mental side that you're taking away and what that balance is. But this year I was enjoying it for whatever reason. I was doing a bit more, hurt my knees again for just injuries in the past that I hadn't let healed properly. But that's turned into like a nightly core and breathing routine, which I've found is super, super beneficial, especially for cross. It's been really, really nice. So.
That's awesome, man. Do you do anything, again, tangent here,
Yeah.
Do you do anything at the race for like a breathing exercise or any like little meditation or anything prior to the race or anything?
I probably should. But no, I'm on the meditation thing. I'm a big believer, at least personally, of being calm and confident going into the race, as opposed to like that, like super angry, like death metal, like, let's get at it. It's like
Yeah.
just kind of like how you noted earlier, like just like super chill in the start pen, like
Yeah.
just chatting to people. Like
It
if
was
someone
great,
wants to
man.
talk,
I'm like
okay.
trying to hold. I said that was it was amazing. It was really refreshing to chat with you because like I'm thinking of like there's that like that cartoon of like the dog with like everything's fine and then it's like fire. You know, the house is on fire. Like that.
Yeah.
That was me, man.
It's actually funny you should mention that. Me and a couple of my friends, that's just like our living motif, is that one like meme or gif. Like, yeah, it's fine, it's fine. Like the world's burning, but it's good. It's not a
Yeah,
big
yeah,
deal. We'll survive this instant.
for sure. Um, yeah. What about let's say race day, man? Do you have a race day routine of like a big thing is like when do you get to the course and like how many pre-rides do you do and are you eating like a lot of people say like they don't like to eat once they get to the course like what's your routine like?
Yeah, I have a vague routine. I don't always stick directly to it. Um, Especially when I'm in like hotels or stuff like that. I kind of try and be at the course 3 to 4 hours before, but I'll go earlier if I'm bored and there's bad internet, just to like chill, get an idea what the dirt's like. I just hang out with people I don't always see and stuff like that. Um, Try and get one lap on course kind of as soon as I get there. Grab my race numbers, pin my race numbers, get another lap on course. Have like if I'm hungry, have like a sandwich or something, or snack or whatever I'm kind of craving. I'm not too picky on what I eat. Um, and then yeah, just kind of hang out for a couple hours at that point, watch some races go through, have a look at some technical features and see how other categories are riding them and whether there's lines that are forming that I know I want to avoid and make kind of mental notes of, and just try and stay relaxed. Like try not to think about the race, just do my own thing, chat with people, hang out.
That's awesome, man. I feel like your race day routine, the overall message is like be relaxed, be chill,
Yeah.
which is super super nice because I know there are other people dude who it's like just like you said like it's I'm going to war, man, you know. It's just a different approach, you know.
Yeah, and like everyone, like I think that's kind of like the key thing we keep going back to is like everyone's different. Like do whatever like works best for you. What makes you happy? What makes you perform? Like, and a few of my friends growing up, like they're like, I'm going to war. I don't want to talk to anyone. Like 2 hours before the race, don't talk to me. I have my headphones in.
Yeah.
It's like, cool, man. Like that works for you. Whatever, go for it. But like, you don't have to be like that. Like that shouldn't be something you should feel forced into, especially as a younger athlete.
I feel you do because I feel like that's kind of more that's like what you see in the movies or it's like it's that headphones on this I'm getting amped, which is fine, dude. Don't get me wrong, getting amped up is great. But like you said, it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah. And like kind of a tangent on this. I played hockey a lot growing up. And it was super interesting looking back now, seeing how many different approaches there were. Like you had, I remember one year we had these two goalies. One of them had like this, like going to war, like headphones on. They're doing warm-ups for like 40 minutes in their kit, like getting dialed. The other one like does not give a flying like F about anything. They're just like super relaxed, like messing with like the defenseman and just like playing around with people the whole time, like half dressed as the coach is trying to give the like pregame like pep talk and all this. He's still trying to get ready, like, but he'd always play the best in the game and he's always the one having the most fun. And it's kind of cool looking back to see how that plays out for different people.
For sure. You know what, man? This makes me think of it. So at Charm City, we're sitting in a tent and we're like right across from the announcers and they're the Cannondale tent and everyone's tents are like next to ours. I don't know how we got a tent space like next to like Magali and all them. Or like they're like, yeah, you guys can put your tent here. I was like, this is amazing. But anyways, so the guy's doing the announcing and he's like looking across the stage and he's looking at the women warming up. And he's like, oh, you can see Claire over there. She's got her headphones on. She's definitely going for the win. And then they named someone else. I'm not going to say who it was. And they're like, oh, she's laughing, she's joking around, she must not be too serious about this race. Like I was just like, oh, dude, I think she just has a different approach to it, man. You know, like
Oh, 100%.
she's not going into that whatever kill mode. She just has a different approach.
Yeah.
But at the same time, dude, like giving the announcers a break, like they're also talking all day, so I'm sure they're just looking for something to say, you know?
Yeah, something that isn't necessarily about the race, like
Yeah,
maybe
yeah,
poke fun at someone a little bit just to like
yep,
get a laugh or
for
keep
sure.
people engaged. But yeah,
Dude, one last thing, or I got a bunch of stuff I want to talk to you. I don't want to keep you too much, but
well, it's
you
all
talked
good.
about pinning numbers, man. And I know this is like a basic thing, but this is like a big topic in the Discord recently was about um getting so we're like, oh yeah, you get to the cross race, and if you're rolling solo, you got a skin suit on, you got to get someone else to pin your number for you. And we were all like, no, dude, you don't get anybody to pin your number for you, man.
No,
So I want to hear it from you, dude. How do you go about pinning your numbers on your skin suit?
there's two different approaches I take. If I'm able to like pin the night before, I like using a pillow and just use that as roughly like for the back.
For sure.
And then I like just using like the lower part of my leg, like just below my calf for the arms. But if it's super cold, I'll use like a 500 ml bottle, like just a normal cycling bottle, and
Yep.
that works really well. I'm pretty lanky, so that's roughly the same size as my arm. There's a few guys who might need to use an Nalgene depending on how big their arms are, but
Yep.
and then just putting like the legs through with the back facing up over my thighs and just pulling it a bit, and then using the pockets on the back to just roughly judge where it needs to be. Yeah, especially if it's on the pockets, it can like kind of stretch and deform a bit to fit, so it doesn't have to be perfect.
For sure.
So, and then 9 pins on the rear.
I'm a 9 pin as well. Let's see, 3, 6.
And then
where's one in the center? Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
one in the center.
All right. I usually don't do the center one, man. I know some people who do it, but yeah, I guess aerodynamics are a thing, man, right?
Yeah. Well, like when I did Green Mountain Stage Race in Rimouski, like one of my friends, like a super like smart nerdy guy. He's like, yeah, aerodynamics, man. Like pinning your number right is more important than a disc wheel. Like just going off at everyone. I'm like, all right, man, like whatever.
What about, do you cut the arm numbers down a little bit?
I don't. I usually leave them the same size.
Okay.
I'm not too concerned.
How many pins on the arm numbers? 4? Or are you doing 2?
I do 4, sometimes 5, depending on like how bulky they are and how well they want to fit.
Gotcha, dude. I got to up my pin game. I was only doing 2 on the numbers on the arm numbers.
No, it like catches and blows in the wind on the side.
It was totally catching and blowing in the wind.
Yeah.
I was like, whatever. I was like, I think this is how people do it. Now
that's
I know.
Like 5 spots at Baltimore, Josh. You gotta pick it up,
dude. I would have been in the UCI points for sure.
There you go. Like that was the numbers were holding you back.
That's what it was, without a doubt. But yeah, dude, I wanted to say, dude, everyone, if you're listening to this, you heard it here first. Brody, you've raced in the World Cups, man. You got to pin your own numbers.
Yeah, pin your own numbers, please. Yeah. It's one thing if like you're on the line and one pops and someone helps you, but just pin your own numbers.
Yeah. What about, dude? So do you know anyone, I'm harping on this number pinning thing. Do you know anyone at like the high or at like the front of the race who isn't using pins? Because like there are other things, right? There's like the tape, you can use like the spray, but I think everyone for the most part is just using pins, right?
Yeah, like I've seen people do the like no pins like magnet things in the past, but that was kind of a fad that died pretty quick.
Yeah. People talk about the magnets, and I'm like, stay away from the magnets, man. They can be more of a hassle. Yeah.
100%. And I've seen overseas a few people like use that spray adhesive, but
yeah,
pins are just so easy. Like,
for sure. I know.
And if you don't do it like a meat stick, you're not gonna wreck your jersey at the end of the day, or just have like, this is my cross jersey.
That's what I say, dude. I'm like, I'm all for, people don't want to destroy their kit, but it's like, it's also like, it's part of your workwear, right? Like I'm saying, like, this is like what you do. Like it's going to get beat up, and especially if you're going to a cross race, dude, you got to expect to get dirty a little bit,
Oh, 100%. Like kit is 100% a wear item. Like that is something you're replacing. It's not going to last you forever.
Yeah.
So, pinning in the same spot. I've noticed most of the US numbers are like the same size. So you can pin in that like same spot, and like if you're careful, get it through the same hole. So then you only have 9 holes or 4 holes or whatever it is in whatever spot.
Good tip, man.
Yeah.
I mean, there's something else I was just going to ask you and I totally forgot, but there's plenty of other stuff. So I don't want to keep you too long, man. We're already past an hour. Do you want to give it a little bit more time to chat, or if you got to go, it's cool.
Oh no, keep going. It's all
Okay,
good.
sweet.
I've got tomorrow off for the most part. I've got like
Okay,
a
nice.
shop ride in the evening, so it's all
Well,
good.
dude, if you're probably tired though too. So if you start falling asleep, man, then I'll just yell through the yeah. Um, so I wanted to go through the races, man, and just kind of get your rundown on them. So like
Yeah.
you don't have to go in too much detail, but like there are some like every race had like specific things that happened, and I'm sure you have your own adventure as well. But from watching them, Sunday at Waterloo, it was like most guys started off on files, and then they switched to intermediates, and then they're going to muds. What was your experience there, man? Were you changing bikes? Was it like just madness?
That hurt my head so much. I was talking to a few people, not any of the top guys, admittedly, but a few people, and they're like, "Oh," I was like, "Oh, what are you starting on?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm doing files, man. The course is so fast." I'm like, "Dude, like forecast says I'll say race time was 1 o'clock." I'm like, "Dude, like race time, like it's raining at 1. Like that's what forecast says, and 100% from 1 to like 5. Like you don't want to start on like intermediates." Like, no, no, no. Like I'm doing files. I'm doing files. I'm like, all right, man, like whatever. Admittedly, I have my two tire choices, at least for tubulars, are Griffos and Baby Lemuses.
Yep.
That is my file, my mid wet, and my mud. That's it. Makes it easy. I was just getting ready for my warm up at, we'll say 12:05, like 50 minutes before the race. And I checked the forecast. I'm like, it is raining in like 30 minutes, and like heavy rain is what it's calling for. And I'm in my area, we're pretty short on supplies. I work at a shop, so I try and buy things, but like also can't always take things because customers need stuff too.
Yep.
So I'm like short on some rotors and like a cassette and a few other things. So I only have 2 sets of everything for my wheels. And I looked and I was like, like I need to change wheels. I need like, so I stripped like a set of wheels down, like swapped everything over. One of my rotors and pads are contaminated, so I had to make sure that stayed at the like right spot, just because I don't have like pads and rotors to replace it with.
Yep.
So I'm doing this like 50 minutes before the race, like just panicking in my race kit, all my numbers on, my helmet, everything. Like this is gonna pay off in the future. Like I just need to do this.
Yeah.
I show up, like barely get a warm up in, and I look around, everyone's on files. I'm like, oh, this is ending so bad for so many people.
For sure. Yeah.
Like we're in the start pen, 5 minutes ago, starts raining. I'm like, oh, this is awesome. I'm gonna like make up so much time the first few laps. And then it was just chaos everywhere because everyone's on chicanes or like LASs or anything like that. I'm like, oh, this is terrifying.
I think I saw some dudes who were rocking dunes as well, and I was like, oh my god, you got like nothing out there, man.
Oh, I don't know how they did it like that.
Yeah.
Mean like off camber. I don't know how people rode it, honestly, man. Like there was a big rut, admittedly, but I don't know how they made it down. It was, at least in my opinion, pretty janky.
Well, what about dude? And so in that, was that the off camber? That was, I'm thinking of where
in that the wooded section.
Well, there was a wooded section, yeah, but there wasn't an off camber, but it was the downhill into the pavement, into the run up. How did you fare there?
That was terrifying. I think that section actually would have been better on like a dune or a chicane or something like that, just because there's more contact with the ground.
For sure.
But it was so sketch. The like ground wasn't like beaten down, so you're tracking everything onto that pavement, and everyone's going in way too hot because they want to carry speed for that run up. And like just that little bit of moisture with wet tires and muddy tires, just one of my buddies got a video of that, and it looks terrifying. Like he mangled his whole everything.
It did not look good, man. I also like, I'm not a course designer, but just my 2 cents is having a fast descent within like a barrier that doesn't move, probably not a good idea, right?
No, like I can kind of see where they're coming from, because like all the other areas, like, oh, we have metal fencing everywhere else. Like, why does it matter here? But
yeah,
I think that case is a little bit different just because it's asphalt and like rain doesn't always mix.
For sure.
I know previously they had it on less of an angle, so you're making the turn on the grass, not the pavement.
Yeah.
Which I think was the like small little minute difference that made an issue. But
yeah. What about, did you pit at all? Did you like change your pressure later in the race or anything?
No, I'm pretty I like 1921 in pretty much all conditions. I'll go down super low if it's muddy, but like even Fayetteville, I was 1921 with babies, and I'm happy.
Interesting, man. Yeah. So yeah, so let's jump to Fayetteville then, man, which was anyone who you can watch the replays. But yeah, dude, mud. This was, I wouldn't say, what are your, would you say this was a proper mud race? Like it wasn't like super thick, but it still was super muddy.
So just to jump back to Waterloo for a sec, I'd say that's like in my mind, this like what cross is, like that, like super greasy, super fine, like fast mud. That is cross in my opinion. Not saying dusty races aren't cross, everything's cross, but when I think of cross, that's what it is.
I think everyone agrees with you, man. Everyone, like, there are cross races, don't get me wrong, like when you're racing in September in Rochester and stuff like that. But yeah, then you get into the proper season with those conditions. Like I'm with you at least.
Yeah. So I kind of base all of my judgments off of that being cross. So I think Fayetteville, like that was a proper mutter. I think the course, because of the course design, it was kind of interesting because most of the time in mud races, like there's more off camber and more like janky stuff that you got to be careful of. Where that big, fast descent, because of the under the first like couple inches was just hard rocks. There was actually a ton of grip underneath. You just had to like know where to be in the course. So again, like if you're someone who can't necessarily find those like minute differences, like that's a true proper mutter. But if you could like, oh, I know that under the slick stuff there's mud, or not mud, there's like hard dirt. It's like, oh, this is awesome. I can rail these corners. I can like get my foot out just to be like as a just in case. But otherwise you could just rail everything and not really think twice.
Did you don't name any names here, but did you see some dudes who were struggling and not being able to find that grip? I'm sure there were guys.
Yeah, like I think honestly, like I think most people were in that kind of situation because it was, in my opinion, it was super backwards thinking. Like most of the time you're like, oh, there's grass is fast. And that's generally the truth. Like if you stay 3 to 4 inches off that like dirt path, that's where the fast dirt is. Where I found here, it was the opposite. You wanted to be through that like actual mud because underneath was that hard packed dirt. So if you sat in that, you could fly up all the climbs, you could do all the descents in the corners super, super easily. Again, like just something that you kind of have to be aware of and not be afraid to try different lines in the race.
For sure, dude. This is like your version of Sven Nys. Have you seen those Sven Nys videos?
Yeah. Oh, I love Sven Nys. I love those as a kid. Yeah.
What I'm saying is it's like he always breaks down like I'll link a Sven Nys video if anyone hasn't seen them. Yeah, it's just an interesting way of looking at corners, you know, or turns, or not even a turn. It could be like some part of the course. And usually it was always, I don't think it was you. Was it always Sven? Sometimes it wasn't Sven, I feel.
I think like 85% of the time it was Sven. Like sometimes it was someone else, but he was so dominant, like it's hard to stray away.
But it's just like just the same way of looking at a specific part of the course in like a different way than everyone else, you know, and what it doesn't have to be pretty, but it's faster. It's all about just handling it faster.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like,
I was gonna say it's not even, and it's faster in the sense of like maybe it's you come in faster, maybe you go out faster. It's like a weird way of breaking it down, right?
Yeah, and like actually on that spot, like or that topic, I always think of cross as like Formula One in a sense. Like the way that we approach corners isn't necessarily the fastest way through the corner, but it's the way that we can conserve the most momentum without letting the person behind us pass or give them an opportunity to pass. And if you look at, especially in the wet, the amount of different line choices they use between like if you look at a Verstappen versus a Hamilton, they might be like the two fastest guys in the world, but their wet line choice is totally different because their driving styles are totally different. Like that line that I was just describing worked perfectly for me, but I'll just use Caleb because we were talking about him earlier. Like, but it might not work for like a Caleb Schwartz, or it might not work for a Stephen Hyde or someone like that. Like, we're all so different in our abilities, our skills, and what we can find and feel on the course. So I think
for sure, dude. That's a good point, man. Maybe a more powerful rider that maybe doesn't feel confident in the mud is like, I'll take the long way, but I can just get up to speed a bit faster, you know, and like I got a few more extra watts here, you know.
Yeah, or someone who's like feeling like their legs are about to cramp and need to like keep the momentum. Like, oh, I'll go like this outside line, but I can keep pedaling and keep trying to flush stuff out without like worrying about overextending my leg and cramping up. Like that's also something that
super interesting, dude. Yeah. All these little things, man. Like these are the like the little like this is the decision fatigue you're talking about earlier, that mental fatigue of like all the little things that add up throughout the course of the race on top of like how hard you're going, like, but
Yeah,
I guess this is why cross is awesome, right?
it's so cool. And like it's things that at some point you kind of stop thinking about and just kind of become like natural. Like
Yeah,
like what we're talking about, I don't necessarily think of like in the race. It's just like this feels fast, I go fast, I go here. Like it's very like basic rudimentary thoughts that you can then elaborate and kind of
for
share
sure,
and make
dude.
more sense of
And
later.
I think it's like to extend that, it's like that muscle memory though, dude. Like I'm saying, you've been doing
Yeah.
it for so long, man. It's such a high level, all different conditions, all different courses. I think you find out what works for you. And you're like, oh, dude, I've done this turn before when I was in whatever Hoogerheide, and now I you
Yeah.
draw from those experiences.
Oh, for sure. And like what you're saying that, and just to like kind of go back to what we are saying about like underbiking, like you can learn so much underbiking for that same reason. You take your road bike on this like gravel ride and you're like, oh, there's this corner. Oh, I know what like a bike feels like when it's sliding and I know where to regain grip. But you're at such a low consequence compared to when you're in a cross race or a mountain bike race because you're at slower speeds that you can then elaborate and like build from that one experience, whether you realize you learned it from that time or not.
For sure, dude. Although if you're underbiking too much, like I hit a gravel road and tried to get cute today, and I double flatted. That's on me though, man.
Yeah, but like you didn't, there wasn't consequence to you. There was consequence
Ex-
to the tires. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
exactly, dude. And also, there wasn't any consequence in like that. It was just out on an endurance ride, having fun. It's like
Yeah,
it wasn't a race, or I'm not getting timed or anything. So it's like if I was gonna flat, that's the time to do it.
yeah, exactly. Get the
Yeah,
mechanicals out of the way then, right?
exactly. Okay, dude. So Fayetteville, new course, um, different. Was that like a? People were comparing it more to like a mountain bike course, like a cross country course. Would you say? And did you enjoy it?
Yeah, like I think my opinion would be different if it was dry. I'm a fairly small guy, not super powerful. I like technical features and kind of that semi strategy and like finding where the grip is to separate myself from others. So I think if it was dry, I would not have loved the course. But with it being wet and super greasy, I think that was something that I really enjoyed. It was like a double track mountain bike race, essentially, like a long, short track, we'll say.
For sure, dude. Like from watching
Yeah.
the pre-ride videos, I was like, dude, this is gonna be a really fast race, And then obviously the weather changed it all, but yeah, it looked like from the start there it was just a fast descent, and then there was that hill, and then you could pretty much just hit everything else except for when you get to the stairs, which was a force. Dude, how come there were no barriers? Was there a reason for that?
None that I'm aware of. The stand-in like Canadian national coach for that had to be at the races was talking to the course designer, and they said like this was just like a mock-up. Let's see what works. We have a couple of ideas, but we want to make it more technical and harder moving forward.
Gotcha.
So
Okay.
that whole like upper area is actually under construction right now.
Okay.
So I think they were kind of limited on where they could go based on where the construction vehicles were at that time. Like all the like team paddocks is going to be paved, but it was all dirt when we got there.
Yeah,
So the plan is for that whole area to be renovated in a sense. So I
for
think the
sure.
course will be vaguely similar, but there's going to be a lot of different features and elements and turns in it.
Super cool, man. I didn't know
Yeah.
that. I thought my understanding was that it was going to be almost the same. So this is good. This is good news, man. We won't get to watch the same race twice.
Yeah, and like I always think like a Zolder or something like that. Like it's the same course, but it's always that like little bit different. They might run this one section backwards or
Yep.
something like that. So I think it might be more similar to that. But yeah, we'll see. It'll be interesting, needless to say.
Awesome, man. Then you had said, I think you had mentioned this earlier, that fingers crossed, like world champs, right? Is that you're hoping to go, right?
Yeah, that's my plan. Based on these results, I think I'd be hard pressed not to go. Um, I haven't, again, not organized, so I haven't checked the national team site yet to see if there's
Okay.
like any tech documents or criteria up yet. So maybe they have it posted, but generally like a top 30 is a requirement. So hopefully
You
that's
got
still
that, dude. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's awesome.
thank you.
I might be going to watch, dude. So if I'm there, I'll be sure I'll shoot you a text, man. I'll be cheering for you.
Yeah, for sure. Honestly, like, well, I've never loved or learned so much than watching like a world championship event. Like, it's super cool to watch those top guys go through section. You're like, man, like, I didn't know you could have that much grip in these tires, and like, it
Yeah.
makes you want to go faster on your own too. But
I know we're jumping ahead here, dude, and I know like fingers crossed that you're there. I really hope it. But that would be your first time, probably. I'm guessing that like Matthew will probably be there. Vanderpool. I don't know if Wout. I don't know what Wout's status is. But then probably Pidcock and those guys. That'll be your first time racing against those guys, right?
No.
Oh, you've raced against. Okay.
Yeah. I've raced Matthew in Deegaman a few years ago.
Okay, nice.
So that was pretty cool. Got lapped very quickly, but it was still pretty cool.
Well, dude, so let's talk about that, man. Let's talk. I know we're jumping all over the place here.
Do you want to touch on Iowa before we go too far?
Yeah, let's talk about Iowa, man. What were your feelings? Because like, dude, like I wanted to say, like you're a smaller dude, man. Like you got power, but you're a super technical rider. Technical was the word I was looking for earlier.
Yeah.
But dude, hitting Mount Crumpet over and over, like, was that just like awful, or was like, I had a plan? Were you riding it? Were you running it?
So it all depended on where, like if I was in a group where I was in the group. First and second lap, I just didn't even try. I was like, I'm just getting off before I hit those like little barrier things.
Yep.
And then beyond that, I based on where I was within a group or who I was around. The next couple of laps, I think I rode it once, ran it once, just as either I made a mistake or the person in front of me made a mistake. And then beyond that, every lap, I think I was in a group of like 2 or 3, and there's like an unspoken rule. Whoever pulled on that straightaway through the start finish got to lead into Crumpet. Nice. Just as like you did the hardest part of the work, you get to do this with the which I think is super cool of athletes to kind of do that and without speaking. So yeah, I hit it like I made a bad mistake this year and got a 42-11-32 setup for both the bikes that I'm using.
Okay.
And every single time I was 1 gear too hard. So I was like a 42-28 trying to like grind up this super steep, like bumpy hill. It's like, I hate this so much. Why can't it be muddy? I want to run. Like, I don't want to do this anymore.
So do you think if you had gone down to the 32, do you think you would have been fine?
Yeah, like I minus like 3 laps, I did make it up every time, even in that wrong gear. But it was just burning so many matches because using so much like muscular energy as opposed to like your cardiovascular system. So just burning matches without needing to. Especially on a course like that, you don't really want to like burn matches without having to, just because you're just on the gas the whole time, like racing in a pack.
Sure.
And,
yeah. What about, speaking of bike setup, man, do you run the 42-11-32? Is that kind of like your standard across? Maybe you change the chain ring to a 44 sometimes, or do you not do that? No? Okay.
So this is the first time in a while I've had a 1x setup. I'm a big believer of like, if it comes 2x, I'm going to leave it 2x. If it comes 1x, I'm going to leave it 1x. I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. But yeah, I even the last number of years I've race crossed, I've had a 46-36 with an 11-30. And like twice a year, I'll drop into the little chain ring. Otherwise, I just use the 46-30 as my easiest gear. And if I have to go to something smaller, it's typically faster to run. So I just get off and run.
Yep.
So that's kind of my thinking with this setup. And I think Mount Crumpet is the only time all year where you really need anything smaller than that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you can kind of get away with it without worrying too much.
Do you know, because you see those guys, I don't know if Vanderpool's, I think he's still 2x, right? I think Do you know, because you race with these guys, I've always questioned this, if they go into the small ring. Do you know, I mean, do you think they do go in the small ring? Okay.
Yeah, like I'm going to just jump to Zolder just because that's a course that I know super well. Like that climb that they always do on the backside, or the 2 climbs, I should say, they always drop down into the little ring.
Okay.
And when I say little ring, it's like a 39 tooth. Like it really isn't a little ring.
I was going to say, I think that's like from like doing like, when they do like the bike, whatever profiles, I think that's like a pro only. They do like the 46-39. I don't know if you can get that standard. Maybe you can order it.
Yeah. Like you can't buy like a 46-39 together, but you can buy a 46 outer ring and then buy a 39 inner ring.
Gotcha. Okay.
But yeah, like I think it's kind of nice. Like on those features, it's always like steep up into like a fast straightaway or downhill. So instead of doing like 6 shifts at the back, it's like one big shift. You don't have to think about it. It's nice and easy. And you can leave that shift to the last second. like crumpet, there's the last 20 meters, sorry, you're like trying to downshift all the way to the top of your block. And like you're losing so much speed going into it, where if you could just like be like 2 gears at the back and 1 at the front, you can do that all at the same time. And you can do that in 10 meters, which saves energy and momentum, which saves energy up the hill.
What was crumpet like the first time up? Was it just like you kind of just like you got no choice, right? You're just going at whatever speed everyone in front of you is. Yeah.
Yeah, I knew what was happening. I was at the last row start as per usual, so I was like kind of off the back. I was like, okay, this is gonna be hectic. I'm not gonna like bury myself anywhere in that first like third of the lap because it's not gonna matter. And then use that opportunity to look up and see like who's slowing, who's like tripping and stuff like that, and be like, oh, I'm gonna go on the right or the left side. That's the fast line. And like I said, I'm a fairly good runner, so I can use that as an advantage to kind of like weave my way through and make positions up.
Yep. But, nice, man. Yeah, I would imagine it was chaos, man. I'm saying like it looked crazy. Yeah.
There's just so many, I don't know how many people I saw like grab like bikes or shoulders to like push themselves up. What is going on here?
Yeah, I'm sure there's probably some people having some conversations after the race. Like, I'm sorry about that, man. I'm sorry. It was the heat of the moment.
Oh, I think like the North Americans with the Euros are just like, that's racing, suck it up, like let's go.
Dude, so that's the other thing, man. You have experience. This is a good question, man. I feel like I was listening to a podcast about this, and they were talking about on the women's side of things, like how they're like super, like they kind of wish, the commentators were like, I wish that they were kind of like more mean to one another. I know, like, and like they were talking about even the European women too, like everyone that kind of just gets along really well. But I feel like on the men's side, it is, dude. It just seems like, dude, they're just out for blood, even amongst teams, man. I feel like sometimes you see like Easterbet and like Van Torenhout, and I'm like, I know these guys are friends, but they look like they're about to like punch each other right now.
Yeah, I think it's like an interesting dynamic. It's like, again, like drawing from that F1 world, like you're on the same equipment with people who are super similarly skilled. Like it really comes down to who's the best on that day. And I know at World Championships, especially, there's like a pecking order in a sense. Like they'll be like, okay, we want this person to win Worlds. So if you're Ilya Iserbit and they're like, yeah, no, we want Wout to win Worlds, and you're like, what the hell? Like, I'm just as fast, I can win Worlds. But they're like, nah, you gotta work for Van Aert today. Like that kind of like makes things a little bit more interesting. Like you kind of have to follow because it's your federation. They're the ones that allow you to do these races. But at the same time, you're kind of like taking a step away from your own career and your own goals and your own pursuits. So I think there's a lot of that isn't necessarily seen or spoken of outside of like those teams and those spots.
For sure. What about, dude? So speaking of teams and tactics, and like, I guess that's different at the World Championships and stuff, like there's different things at play. Mm-hmm. Do you feel in the US races, or I guess even in the World Cups here, were there any team tactics at play? Because I feel like you see that, like you see like the sauces, and like sometimes you'll see like maybe the Wanty guys getting in the mix, what's your experience there? And do you think that there is a place in cross for team tactics?
Yeah, like I think there's a place for sure, especially on courses like Iowa, like those dry, dusty, fast courses where you can really like work together and create gaps or like try and slow people up, whether that be because you're just riding tempo, which is just hard enough where like the person behind doesn't want to pass, but like they really should, and kind of playing those mind games.
Yeah.
As far as like seeing it happen, I'm always too far back from the action to actually see it in the later laps when it's going to actually be of value to riders. But I do definitely think it happens. Like even listening to the commentators, like as I'm going through and trying to figure out where everyone is on course, just so I know when I'm going to get pulled on those shorter courses. You can hear what they're saying. You're like, man, like these two teammates, like there's one up front, there's two in the group behind with another rider. I bet you they're going to either slow up or like make the other guy pull, tire them out. And then that way, if their rider up front wins, then I'm sure there's like going to be some shared, because whether that be through like a team and a bonus, or whether that be from like the rider itself, just like crits, like I think there is some of that coming into play.
For sure, man. I feel like you see that a lot with Ellie and the sauces guys, like they'll send a guy up the road, a couple of guys will sit in, they'll tire out whoever's there, and then they'll just go and they'll just sweep the podium,
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, dude, I think we touched on the races. I kept you for so long, but I got one final question that I wanted to ask you earlier.
Mhm.
In your step going up, dude, from like racing U19, U23, and then now racing in the elites and racing in the World Cups, and you're going over to Europe. Do you feel two-part question?
Yeah.
What did you feel like you had to really work on as you progressed from U19 to U23 to now? And what do you find now doing the World Cups that you need to progress to work on throughout the rest of the season to like kind of like, I guess, to better your results?
Yeah, for sure. So without like going off on too much of a tangent, up until really this year, if I'm being honest, I haven't always been the greatest athlete. I've been a little bit too laid back and like, I just want to enjoy it. Like I've recognized at a young age that what I'm doing is super cool and like I just want to enjoy it and make the most of it. So maybe I wasn't as focused on training as I should be, which I wasn't for sure. But like that was definitely the one thing I was lacking when I was younger, and that structure is slowly grown, especially over the last 2 years when I had a forceful step away from racing, just kind of realizing what my goals are, what I actually want to do versus what I feel I should do based on whether that be what I think societal pressures are based around racing and the racing community. But I've also had a lot of instances and issues in racing. I've had a lot of concussion and health issues in the past. So that's been a big step back every time that happens. So learning to overcome that and coming back from where I was at to where I was before has always been like a big challenge and a big push. I didn't necessarily answer that first question, but
No, I think that was great, man.
yeah, that's kind of like the vague overview. And then moving forward, rest, recovery. I'm a little too busy for what I'm trying to do. I work full time at a bike store, so I'm like 55 hours a week. I kind of fit my training in at like 6 a.m. Just try and sneak out before work. I do in the summer. I coach on Mondays with my local cycling team. Weekly social rides, whether that be with the shop or like just with buddies on top of that. So I never really find enough time to rest and recover. So trying to make that more of a priority moving forward is going to be a huge step, and I think it's going to make all the difference. But kind of forcing myself to be selfish is the issue.
Dude, you seem like a very giving person. It's like I asked you that question earlier, and you're like, you really want to do things about like giving back to the community and stuff, man. That's great, dude. But I do think, man, I always tell my athletes like race hard and then recover hard, you know? So like, dude,
Yeah.
I think you got to be selfish a little bit, man. So I'm looking forward to the next time we chat when you're like, oh man, I'm so well rested. I'm feeling so good. Yeah, I hope that's the follow up.
Yeah, hopefully. We'll see. Just got to be a little bit more selfish, like you said.
Well, dude, good luck with everything, man. Thank you so much for chatting, dude. We chatted for 90 minutes here. I really appreciate it, dude. These are so many gems, so many solid takeaways here. I really appreciate it, dude. I would love to do maybe later in the season, like a follow up, man, and see how the rest of everything's going.
Yeah, for sure. I'd love to do that.
All right, awesome, man.
Yeah.
What about if people want to get a hold of you, man? What's like? I know you're on Instagram. Where else can they reach you, or is that like the best spot to get a hold of you if they wanted to pick your brain?
Yeah, Instagram is probably the best spot to do that. Just shoot me a message. I'm not always the fastest at getting back. I'm not on social media all the time, but yeah, shoot me a message or try and get back within like a day or two at the latest.
Awesome, man.
Always happy to answer any questions anyone has.
That's great, dude. We really appreciate it. And like I said, I'll link the stuff in the show notes. Thank you so much, and good luck with the rest of the season, dude.
Yeah, thank you. Actually, before we end this, can I just add like one quick little anecdote that I just
dude,
remembered?
for sure. Yeah.
So going back to that like kind of like nastiness of like Euro cross, remember this one story Sven told us at that like UCI trip I was talking about. He was like a junior under 23, and he was standing waiting in line to get up this like run up. And some guy reached over and pulled his quick release and dropped his rear wheel. Just like standing there, no idea who it was, because they're like 5 or 6 wide, like all in the big huddle. And they're just like, yep, nope, you're done. Pulled his quick release, and he had to like put it back on whatever lap it was and get back going.
Oh my gosh, dude.
But yeah, like just kind of going back to that like Euro nastiness, kind of a funny story that I've always remembered.
dude. And I'm sure like that wasn't the first time that's happened. I'm saying maybe to Sven it was, but I'm saying that was probably like it's like those nasty tricks that they were pulling all over the place.
Oh yeah, I think the best thing about disc brakes and like through axles is people can't do that anymore. You're not gonna carry a multi-tool around to like take out a through axle.
Oh man, dude. I would love, do you have any other, have you seen anything else? I'm just curious. Have you seen like, I don't know what other tricks people would do. I'm sure there are things people could do, but
I'm sure there are other than like just like general race stuff like chopping
yeah.
people in corners and like
Yeah.
yeah, that's kind of the
Well,
biggest one that I've found.
what about that, dude? What's your feeling on, and then I'm really going to let you go. What are your
Yeah.
feelings on, because we had this discussion again in the Discord about like the dive bomb in the corner, right? Which is like a part of racing and like, but it's not, it's totally frowned upon. Like, and it's like, dude, if you're going to pass someone, you can do it in a better way. But what are your feelings? And I'm sure this must happen in the races, right? Like, like
Yeah.
those positions matter.
So I think there's two ways to go about it. You can either be like the a-hole dive bomb where it's like absolute last minute, like the guy is like it's taking a good line, like setting it up, like or pulled like a long straight, and then you're gonna dive bomb on the last second.
Yep.
I think that's kind of frowned upon. But like if someone makes an attack in like a pack and you're trying to like hop on it, and it's like kind of dicey, but everyone makes it through safe. No one's like really getting hurt, but you still dive bombed, you still cut someone off and chop them. I think that's totally cool. But like don't like be like, hey, sorry, like just like do like a little wave or like something
Yeah.
just to like say I probably shouldn't have done that. Sorry about it, but like that's racing.
I feel like it's racer's discretion, right? I feel like you know
Yeah.
when what you're doing is probably a really bad idea. Like leave that out. When you're like it's questionable and like I feel like questionable is kind of just part of racing, man. You know, it's like you're making
Oh, for
decisions in
sure.
split seconds.
Yeah, and like even like if you do something questionable, like find the guy after the race, be like, hey man, sorry about that. Like
Exactly,
just
dude.
try and
I
be
think
nice about it. Like
that's the
own up
part we
to
should
what you
highlight.
did.
That's what we should highlight, dude. Go up to the guy after the race and be like, "Hey, man, sorry, dude. How was your race? Yeah, man. We're
Yeah.
all out there like to have a good time, and yes, we want to get results, but we all want to go home in one piece too."
Yeah, exactly. We all have to be at work on Monday morning.
I
Like
know.
no one wants to like go back in a cast because some guy chopped them and like yeah, like you said, use discretion. It's what
For
and I
sure.
think there's a big difference between doing it in like a Cat 3-4 race versus doing it in like a UCI start. Like you're kind of anticipating that when you go to like a UCI start line. You're like, okay, I know what I'm getting myself into. But Cat 3-4, I think there's a big discretion. And I learned this as like a junior road racer where people are like, oh, I gotta win. Like I'm doing this. Like you're fit enough to be that fast, but you don't necessarily have the skills to be that fast. You know what I mean? Like it's that
Yeah,
awkward transition zone, at least in Ontario. I could be wrong in the States, but it was always interesting seeing that dynamic play out with like guys who have the skill versus not and making those moves against guys who couldn't react in time because they weren't anticipating it.
for sure. No, dude, I
But
think that's great to
yeah,
highlight, man. I feel like overall, dude, take a deep breath, chill, relax, and like let the race come to you. I think that's a good way to approach it.
yeah, exactly.
Dude, this was awesome. Thank you again so much. Go get some sleep, dude. Seriously.
Yeah. Oh, I will. Thank
All
you
right,
again,
man.
Josh.
What about, so wait. So when's your next race? I know we talked about this. So when are you racing this weekend?
Not this weekend. I'll probably race next weekend.
Okay.
But that'll be like a kind of game day decision based on how
Awesome.
tired I am and like how training's going that week.
Sweet. Well,
Yeah.
dude, good luck.
Thank you.
And yeah, man, we'll chat with you soon.
Yeah, we'll see you in Falmouth.
For sure. I'll see you there, dude.
Yeah. Sweet.
See you, man. Have a good night.
Thank you. You as well.